Since childhood, I knew that I would find one woman and be with her for the rest of my life, just like my parents. But then I was naive and did not realize that marriage turns out to be a real work, and in order to save it, real efforts are needed. I made a choice, and now I will share my story. I'm not sure if I'm the ideal husband. My job is demanding, and there are times I return home in a less than pleasant mood. Financially, I'm not a millionaire, but we live comfortably with a beautiful house, 2 luxury cars, and my wife, Virginia, enjoys a wardrobe full of stylish clothes. Our daughter, Deborah, has a plethora of expensive toys. Our marriage, which has spanned nearly 12 years, has generally been wonderful, but recently, something seemed amiss between Virginia and me. Over the past couple of months, Virginia's behavior has been odd and distant. She would inexplicably criticize my actions or words, a departure from her usual self. I attempted to discuss it with her, asking if something was wrong, but she dismissed it, attributing it to fatigue or a bad day. Initially, I thought giving her some time might help, but her aloof attitude persisted and became increasingly frustrating. Beyond her demeanor, as any married couple knows, relationship issues tend to spill over into the bedroom. Despite my efforts to maintain spontaneity and excitement in our personal life, Virginia's response to my romantic gestures changed. Once effective acts of love were now met with a simple thank you and a kiss on the cheek. She perceived my displays of affection as feeble attempts to make up for wrongdoing. Virginia had stopped engaging in intimacy, citing various reasons, and when she did, it felt one-sided. Frustrated, I found myself withdrawing from the situation, giving Virginia minimal attention. Desperation led me to reflect on the timeline of these changes, attempting to pinpoint any triggers. I pondered if there was something I had done to cause Virginia's altered behavior. As I contemplated, an unsettling possibility emerged. Could she be cheating on me? I dismissed the idea, reassuring myself that she would never betray our marriage. Yet, curiosity prevailed, and I started researching signs of infidelity, noting differences in behavior, attire, and schedules. I hadn't observed Virginia dressing provocatively, but my limited encounters with her might not represent her daytime attire. Her schedule remained a mystery, as she was always on the go. However, her changed attitude echoed some common signs of infidelity. The notion of hiring a private investigator crossed my mind, fueled by the need to uncover the truth. I had no concrete evidence, just suspicions that weren't enough to justify hiring a private investigator. Determined to find the truth, I took matters into my own hands. Initiating small measures, I'd call home unexpectedly, finding my wife present on some occasions and absent on others. Installing an old outdoor surveillance camera discreetly under the garage eaves, connected to a hidden tape recorder, became my next move. My goal was to detect any unfamiliar cars near the house, but after 2 weeks there was no sign of anything unusual. Observing my wife leaving the house occasionally, she'd claimed to have been home all day, though her short absences didn't provide evidence of any wrongdoing unless her partner was remarkably swift. These actions were inconclusive, merely hints that fueled my growing suspicions. As time passed, my unease intensified. Her demeanor soured and our intimate life dwindled, leaving me frustrated. As our 12th anniversary approached, I saw an opportunity to inject some joy back into our marriage. Eager to rekindle the spark, I planned a night out, ensuring our daughter stayed overnight at my parents' place for unrestricted enjoyment. Reserving a table at Plato's, a favored restaurant of Virginia's, we embarked on an evening filled with anticipation. Walking arm in arm to our table, I hoped the magic of the past would reappear, yet something felt a bit strained. Over dinner and a bottle of wine, Virginia gradually relaxed, resembling her former self. Our conversation turned light and playful, and after dinner, she seemed eager to hit the dance floor. I suggested a new club, but Virginia convinced me to revisit our usual spot, catering to a slightly older crowd with danceable music. Once on the dance floor, we recaptured the joy of our earlier years. However, after nearly an hour of dancing, we returned to our table for a break. As Virginia excused herself to the restroom, I anticipated an intimate continuation of our night, Watching her graceful moves, I was momentarily captivated by her allure. Yet I noticed I wasn't the only one captivated, as someone else in the corner also seemed drawn to her presence. There was an attractive guy on the other side of the dance floor who seemed to be watching Virginia's every move carefully. I briefly wondered if she knew him when she went to the bathroom. From my point of view, it was difficult to confirm whether they were acquainted. This place was exclusively a dance club, and I wondered why he was alone, suggesting that his companion might also be in the bathroom, repeating Virginia's situation. When she passed him on the way back, it seemed to me that they exchanged smiles and glances. All my suspicions have surfaced. When Virginia asked for another glass of wine, I felt awkward leaving her alone while I was ordering at the counter. Noticing the waitress, I gave her a sign, feeling that the evening was taking an unfavorable turn. Watching the guy in the corner, still sitting alone, my curiosity got the better of me. I asked Virginia about him, catching her off guard. Although her voice sounded awkward at first, she quickly pulled herself together. I insisted, referring to the guy she apparently exchanged glances with. Virginia innocently denied knowing anything about him. As soon as our drinks arrived, Virginia glanced over my shoulder. Mr. Loneliness was now approaching our table. Ignoring me, he directly invited Virginia to dance. In response, I resolutely refused, prompting a mocking reaction from him. I objected that he should mind his own business, stressing that Virginia was my wife and I was dictating who she should dance with. When Virginia intervened, addressing me in an irritated tone, Mr. Lonely tried to speak. I cut him off, expressing my annoyance. Virginia, with unexpected assertiveness, defended her right to choose a dance partner, claiming that she did not belong to me. This display of disrespect on the part of my wife made me boil with anger, destroying all prospects for a pleasant anniversary celebration. Watching you dance with someone else is not my idea of enjoyment, especially after I specifically asked you not to dance with him. You're correct. I don't own you, and I can't prevent you from dancing with him. However, if you decide to dance with him, consider asking him to take you home as I'll be gone. After 12 years together, I know Virginia well, and when she looked at me, her face displayed anger. Surprisingly, she couldn't perceive the same emotion on my face. To avoid further bickering in front of the gentleman, she suggested they dance, and we would discuss it later. The man had a triumphant smirk as Virginia took his hand, and they started dancing. I left the venue unnoticed, already several blocks away when my cell phone rang. Virginia remorsefully inquired about my whereabouts, and I informed her that I was on my way home to pack without specifying the destination. Wondering why I was leaving, Virginia pressed for details. I expressed my frustration, stating that I've had enough and needed to get away. She questioned my seriousness over a mere dance, and I clarified that it wasn't about the dance. I highlighted her actions, indicating a lack of love and respect. I suspected her of infidelity, especially with the man she danced with, based on their interactions. Virginia defended herself, assuring me of her love and denying any affair. However, I emphasized her negligence in our relationship, the lack of intimacy, and her overall behavior, casting doubt on her sincerity. Despite her pleas, I remained firm, stating my decision to end the relationship and urging her to believe whatever she wanted. Virginia, desperate and apologetic, begged me to return, promising to take a cab and requesting me to wait until she got home. Unconvinced, I drove away, turned off my phone, and observed from a distance as Virginia arrived home in a cab. This incident strengthened my suspicions, prompting me to hire a private investigator the next day. I informed my colleagues not to let Virginia into the office, allowing the detective to do his job. It became a waiting game, and as Virginia attempted to reach out, I stood firm, awaiting the investigator's findings. Sitting on the other end of the line, Andrea expressed concern about my suspicion that Virginia might be cheating on me. Doubting my belief, she insisted that Virginia had only danced with a guy and suggested that my suspicions were unfounded. I explained that Virginia's strange behavior over the past 2 months and a specific incident that night had heightened my concerns. Andrea vouched for Virginia's loyalty, emphasizing that, as neighbors for years, She had never noticed any evidence of infidelity. Despite Andrea's reassurances, I decided to consult a private investigator to confirm my doubts. Before talking to Virginia, I asked Andrea to convey that I needed time to think and would call her in a couple of weeks. Over the next 2 weeks, I anxiously awaited updates from the investigator. When he finally called me to his office, I felt a knot in my stomach. To my surprise, he handed me a report that refuted any suspicions of Virginia's infidelity. Though relieved, I remained uncertain, questioning the investigator's thoroughness. He assured me that they had monitored Virginia extensively, finding no evidence of an affair. Grateful, I left his office, overwhelmed with relief and gratitude. Returning to my motel room, I contemplated the situation. On Monday morning, I called Virginia, finding her voice shaky and apologetic. She expressed regret, acknowledging her mistake and the lack of respect she had shown. Virginia tearfully pleaded for another chance, promising never to repeat the error. Her unexpected sincerity and remorse left me contemplating whether to give our relationship another chance. Conclusion: yes, I confirmed that I was returning, but with a caveat: it would be on a trial basis. I expressed my desire to have my original wife back, the woman I fell in love with and married. Virginia seemed sincere in her response, claiming that the woman I longed for was still present and waiting for the man she loved. However, I remained hesitant, citing the challenges we faced, including a bad attitude, lack of passion, and disrespect. I shared my plans to retrieve my belongings from the motel after work, but assured her that I would be home that night. Virginia professed her love and apologized for her previous behavior, acknowledging her mistakes. Despite these assurances, I admitted that I still harbored reservations and lingering anger. The uncertainty persisted, fueled by a suspicion that Virginia might have known the man from the dance hall. 2 years passed, and married life gradually improved. Virginia transformed back into the woman I married, both emotionally and intimately. She surprised me with a birthday party and orchestrated a delightful celebration for our 14th wedding anniversary. Despite the uncertainties of her fidelity, I found solace in the renewed warmth of our relationship.
In the wake of a challenging Chicago winter, Virginia embraced the spring's arrival. A morning with a gentle April rain, reminiscent of our shared moments, filled her with nostalgia. Virginia ventured out to meet her friend Kathy, reconnecting after a long time. They shared laughter and memories, discussing their children's growth. However, the conversation took a turn when Kathy disclosed a secret. She was contemplating an affair with a man named Cody. Virginia, aware of the potential consequences, questioned the impact on Kathy's marriage, prompting her friend to reconsider the potential affair's risks and implications. Over the past 2 years, I was determined to keep a secret. Glancing at her friend, Kathy, Virginia decided to take a chance and share a hidden part of her life. Kathy remembered the time when Virginia and Gerald were going through problems, but Virginia had never elaborated. Virginia emphasized the need for Kathy to promise not to reveal what she was about to disclose. Kathy assured her friend that she would keep the secret, acknowledging the potential harm it could cause to Virginia's marriage. Virginia waited for a clear signal from Kathy before continuing. Kathy promised confidentiality, understanding the gravity of the situation. Virginia revealed that after 12 years of marriage, she felt bored and stuck in a routine. Everything seemed monotonous, and Virginia began questioning her life's direction. Despite loving her husband, Gerald, Virginia felt like something was missing, leading to a mild depression. Virginia encountered Justin, and she clarified that it was an emotional affair that she detected before it became physical. She described Justin's attractive features and the excitement of their flirtation. Virginia admitted to her vulnerability and the guilt she felt. She shared the story of receiving Justin's number and the internal conflict she experienced about whether to call him. Kathy listened attentively, finding Virginia's experience strangely familiar. Virginia acknowledged the wrongness of her actions and the vulnerability she felt. Despite telling herself not to call Justin, Virginia couldn't resist, leading to an agreement to meet for lunch. Kathy, fascinated, listened to Virginia's story, relating to the emotional turmoil and the temptation that Virginia faced. My friend took another sip of her coffee before continuing. On the way to the restaurant, my emotions were all over the place. Terrified, excited, and, admittedly, quite aroused. During our conversation, Justin leaned over the table and took my hand, making it feel like a first date. Despite my strong desire to be with him, a mix of conscience and fear held me back. However, Justin had already initiated his seduction, expressing how Gerald didn't appreciate the wonderful woman he had. I found myself resenting Gerald in no time, falling prey to Justin's convincing words. Virginia, hearing my current situation, said, "That sounds like what I'm going through right now, Kathy." She continued, cautioning me about the guy I'm dating and whether he started talking about someone named Bruce. As I replied negatively, Virginia advised me to be cautious, emphasizing the importance of understanding the potential consequences. Virginia continued her story by explaining how her lunch meetings with Justin made it increasingly difficult for her to remain faithful to Gerald. Despite her resistance, Justin almost convinced her to go to his house during their third lunch. Virginia sensed that he was disappointed by her excuses, and she knew that another lunch would most likely lead to an affair. After their third lunch, Virginia mentioned Gerald's invitation to their anniversary and that they could go dancing. Justin immediately took the opportunity to make himself known, stating that he would be there to dance with her, even if it angered Gerald. Virginia told how Justin's arrogant behavior intensified when he showed up at a dance club and deliberately disrespected Gerald. The situation reached a climax when Justin invited Virginia to dance, as a result of which Gerald gave her an ultimatum. As Virginia recounted the events, her eyes filled with tears, expressing the emotional shock she had experienced on the dance floor. Justin's actions were aimed at provoking Gerald and creating a rift in their relationship, in the hope that Virginia would turn to him for comfort. Despite the chaos, Virginia eventually decided to prioritize her relationship with Gerald over Justin's manipulative games. When the waitress came over, he took the initiative and ordered us drinks. And then there was a shock. Gerald paid the bill before leaving. It seemed to me that my whole married life flashed before my eyes. I was stunned, and Virginia, with sadness on her face, began to talk about her ordeal. Tears welled up in Katie's eyes, reflecting her emotions. Virginia insisted on continuing, talking about her desperate attempts to contact Gerald, urging him to return. However, he believed that Virginia was having an affair with Justin. In a heartbreaking moment, Virginia shared that her marriage seemed to be on the verge of collapse. The next day, desperate for answers, Virginia turned to Andrea, Gerald's friend, hoping for a breakthrough. Eventually, Gerald called, saying he needed time. These painful 2 weeks were the hardest for Virginia, who was struggling with the fear of losing everything. When Gerald finally returned, Virginia was on the verge of losing it all. She emphasized the importance of the victory of love over lust. Katie expressed her sympathy, and Virginia confirmed that she had not revealed the truth to Gerald, living in constant fear that it would come out. Virginia was grateful for her marriage, cherishing every day, but her husband never found out the truth, and probably he'll never know her.
She got her old feelings back, but that doesn't mean that it won't happen again in a couple of years, and her husband will still think that everything is fine, and that's the worst thing in my opinion. After all, if you changed it once, then there will be a second time. It's only a matter of time. What do you think about this story? It would be interesting to read your opinion in the comments. Is it good that my husband didn't find out anything, or is it bad? The wife carefully hid her affair and went unpunished, and this is wrong. This is a sin that must be followed by consequences. A week ago, we found out the latest information about this family. The husband found out about his wife's infidelity and did something incredible. If we see good activity under this video, in the form of your likes and comments, then we will post the second part of this story.